Welcome, everyone, my dear friends of democracy and fellow patriots. I wrote this long speech, so bear with me. We are gathered here today to rally in protest of the Citizens United decision 1 year ago to the day. In that decision, the Supreme Court of the land, whose duty it is to safeguard the rights and liberties of the people, effectively sold off our greatest national treasures to corporations. And I speak generally of the right of the people to govern themselves. Our right to self-rule, guaranteed in the Declaration of Independence, our right to a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, has been seriously subverted. In place of the people's right to self-rule, the Supreme Court of the land have sold the entire apparatus of government to the highest bidding corporations in this nation or in any nation on the planet. The effect of this infamous decision is to make campaign finance laws in every state null and void. There is now nothing that prevents an anonymous corporation from Saudi Arabia or China from pouring millions of dollars into our election system to hire candidates that will enact trade laws favorable to that company or that country. It's as if the Supreme Court, by itself, has orchestrated a silent coup d'etat, making the new rulers of the people a handful of absentee corporate executives. There are many names for the system of governance the Supreme Court has enabled and empowered. Some of the names that come to mind are plutocracy, corporatocracy, aristocracy, and even fascism. But one thing is perfectly clear. Any system of government that empowers the wealthiest among us to rule the people, that system of government is not a democratic republic. That system of government is hostile to the interests of the people. To quote President Grover Cleveland, as we view the achievements of aggregated capital, we discover the existence of trusts, combinations, and monopolies, while the citizen is struggling far in the rear or is trampled to death beneath an iron heel. Corporations, which should be the carefully restrained creatures of the law and the servants of the people, are fast becoming the people's masters, unquote. Today, monopoly capitalism is running amok. Take any issue that concerns you. Take any issue that affects the people at large. And I think you will conclude with me that the current rule of corporations is at the root of the problem. If you are alarmed about the rising sea levels or the changing weather patterns that are plaguing the earth and leaving countless thousands homeless, if you dig deep enough, you will see that efforts to address global warming have been thwarted by oil and coal companies who fund pseudo-scientific studies to stalemate Congress into doing nothing. If you're troubled and emotionally distraught because we are in the midst of the greatest mass extinction since the age of the dinosaurs, some 65 million years ago, if you dig deep enough, you will see that transnational corporations have been reckless, careless, and indifferent to the raping and pillaging of natural resources around the globe. The massive loss of habitat of many living species is the direct result of a merger of greedy corporate executives colluding with corrupt governments to the detriment of the natural order. You are one of the countless victims who are suffering from asthma, cancer, or other diseases caused by toxic waste and pollution. You most certainly know who the corporate culprits are that ruined your life. If you once owned a small business, a hardware store or a retail outlet, you know firsthand how the largest retail corporation, Walmart, has practiced a brand of predatory capitalism whose sole design is to eliminate all competition. Enraged when you learn that your tax dollars financed the Walmart that put you out of business. If you are one of the many families in Colorado that are suffering from a polluted water table because the gas extraction practice called hydraulic fracking, you know very well how Halliburton's toxic chemicals used in the process are kept secret from the public. And you know how the courts protect Halliburton's right to privacy over the health and well-being of the community. If you are one of the millions of families that live in the Gulf of Mexico, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in Alabama or Florida, you know your frustration with the national government's capitulation to British Petroleum in the largest oil spill in American history, and how the health and well-being of the millions of affected people were ignored while BP poured millions of gallons of core exit into the Gulf, destroying entire ecosystems, thousands of birds, millions of fish and crustaceans, and leaving hundreds of thousands of human lives in a state of destitution. Through it all, the government not only allowed this to happen, but put the services of the Coast Guard at the beck and call of the oil giant, bottling up the media, preventing cleanup crews from protecting themselves, and incarcerating fishing crews who decided to clean up the mess themselves. All of this corruption is done in the name of the American people, in your name and in my name. If you are one of the 4 million Americans last year whose homes were put into foreclosure, you must have watched in disbelief as the government doled out billions to the banksters who orchestrated this disaster while you got no assistance at all. This unhealthy marriage of corporate money and the U.S. government has cost the American citizen trillions of dollars in debt, thousands of lives in resource wars, and untold suffering and anguish. Benito Mussolini, the tyrannical Italian leader, knew a thing or two about fascism. And he said, fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism, because it is the merging of the state with corporate power. Unquote. Such is the system of government that is rapidly emerging in America today, aided and abetted by a Supreme Court with a corporatist majority. Now that we can see clearly what we are up against, what can we do? What should the people do to regain their government and restore democracy? First, remember and relive these words from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all persons are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Unquote. Second, We need to formulate a comprehensive strategy that will not only assure us victory, but will aid us in the development of a new society, a society built not on greed, but on principles of sustainability, mutual respect, and a deep veneration for life. Here are 7 things you can do. Join the organizations here today. Free Speech for People, Move to Amend, Move On, I believe, is here. We are all working together against corporate rule. Together, we will pass resolutions in every city and county in the state of Colorado calling for the overturn of the Citizens United decision and for amendments to the Constitution that would bring an end to the rule of corporations in America. Let's work together to get publicly financed elections in Colorado. Number 2. Number 3, get involved with your local city councils and oppose the wave of privatization schemes that are sure to come from corporations looking to profit on the public commons. And urge your representatives to support locally owned businesses, to incentivize industries that keep their profits in the community. Start a Buy American campaign. No more cheap Chinese plastic crap. Reduce your consumption, reuse your resources, recycle your waste, and always, always, always remember the earth. Build democracy. Start a group in your neighborhood to discuss and explore the meaning and activity of democracy and what you can do to help restore the right of the people to govern themselves. And lastly, as the current financial crisis of the state and local governments accelerates, more and more privatization schemes will come before our representatives as a remedy to a bad situation. But before we allow the public roads, the public buildings, the public parks, and the public trails to be sold off to the private sector, we should insist that the military budget be cut in half and the savings distributed to the states. We need a national campaign to cut military spending. Military spending is $700+ billion a year. That sacred cow no one's even talking about in Congress. We've got to build momentum to cut military spending. Every day we vote with our money when we shop for food and merchandise. Let's not continue to line the pockets of the millionaires and billionaires who corrupt our political process, but instead support your local organic farmers and the CSAs, the community-supported agriculture, and the small businesses in your neighborhood. Be patient and persevere. Remember, it took African Americans 300 years to be recognized as human beings. And it took women 100 years of struggle to obtain the right to vote. It will not take us nearly that long to bring an end to corporate rule, but neither will it be done in a couple of election cycles. We are not like those who faint before the task. We will meet the challenge presented by the corporate ruling elite, and when our ranks swell to the thousands and hundreds of thousands, we will shake the earth beneath their feet with our tremendous voices, demanding them to depart the sacred corridors of the people's house. We will rise up and reclaim democracy until at last a government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall be restored to this great nation. Thank you, and may courage be your guide.